Hello friends, welcome to Whispers with Vanya, and I'm Vanya. Welcome to the new series called The Warren Case Files, where I'll be covering cases which were handled by the Warrens, who are well-renowned paranormal investigators. Now, I did the first case, which was Annabelle Origins. Welcome to case 2. Now, this story is about the Perron family, which is very much based on the very famous franchise, The Conjuring, and this was one of the most famous cases covered by the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren. This is a true story, and we have facts, we have evidence, so stay tuned if you dare. Now, what would you do if you and your family moved into this beautiful farmhouse thinking that you all have made the best decision in your life, and it turns out to be the most horrific decision ever, leaving you traumatized? Let's get right into it. Now, in 1971, the Perron family moved into a beautiful 18th century colonial farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island. This house set upon 200 acres of land and was secluded enough from other neighbors, and it was called the Old Arnold Estate. The Arnold family being the original owners of the house and basically the original builders of the house that was built, of course, in 1736. And it was basically a slice of heaven. They invested all their money into this house, therefore they would not ever afford to move into another house ever again. So they were just ready to live into this beautiful house. It contained 10 bedrooms, a beautiful big living room, dining room. It was just beautiful, downright beautiful. So little did they know that this house would be the most discussed house in the paranormal universe after the events that they were going to encounter. Now let's talk about the parents. The parents were just a typical American family, very normal, very average. They consisted of 7 family members, the breadwinner being Roger Perron and the mother Caroline Perron, and they had 5 daughters. They had Andrea Perron, Nancy Perron, Christine, Cindy, and April Perron, and they had pets, but they were very consistent in their life, basically. And now you may ask yourself, why would one choose to get their family into this house? And it just seems creepy, secluded, haunted. Just even if it's beautiful, they will still be a little bit cautious. But this is 1971, so, and they were very very typical average family. So they also weren't rich, they were just average. So they invested all their money into this house because this house was really cheap, and a big 10-bedroom house that cheap, they didn't ever want to ask any questions. They're like, okay, whatever even in there, we'll just fight it off, right? So they purchased it, and almost immediately they were met with very strange events. Now, by that first moving in week, each member of the family complained and reported of smelling rotting dead flesh. Like, how it smells when a dog has been hit by a car at the side of the road. That's how it smelled like every single day, just a whiff, and then be like, maybe it's like some dead animals, because again, the house is surrounded by a forest, it's secluded, so maybe just an animal died or a dead deer or something. They didn't think much of it. They also would hear the door creaking on its own, and multiple doors, as if someone was opening them slightly, you understand? And they'd also see toys and just random objects around the house, maybe placed on the tables, toys of the last born child just moving on their own, as if someone was playing with them, someone they couldn't see. And they'd also hear whispers and soft sounds and footsteps echoing down empty hallways. Now, they all just thought this was because the house was old, because this house was built in 1736. That's pretty old, and they just thought, old house things, creaking stairs and wooden floors because it's old, you understand? So they thought it would end. Plus, they not like they had any other option. They couldn't just move out. Remember, they invested all their money inside the house. Now, as months went by, things got worse. They also reported that the air would turn freezing cold, like cold spots, and the beds would shake at night with them, with them sleeping inside the bed. Just feel them shaking and vibrating. And the girls, the daughters, they say that they see figures in the hallway or on the wall or whatever that no one else would see. And the youngest child would say that she made friends, the friends that the parents or the older kids couldn't see with their own eye, basically imaginary friends, but these imaginary friends would seem very off, like not your typical, oh, my child has an imaginary friend. This was very awkward. It was just very strange, you understand? So at this point, they were like, this isn't just the house acting up because it's an old house. And at first they even thought that, they were being pranked by maybe the neighbors or I don't know, by something. Because at first thought, no one just thinks, oh, hey, my house is haunted. So no, at least not in 1971. So these things continue happening, and objects from rooms would disappear only to reappear soaked in water. Weird. Shadows would flicker at the edge of vision, like you see at the corner of your eye, but if you look at them directly, they disappear. And at this point, they were just, we're done. Now, at this point, this was 1973. All these things have just been happening since they moved in 1971 to now. It's 1973. It's 2 years down the line. Yeah, so for those 2 years, they just thought it was a figment of their imaginations. The house was being old and just acting up because it's an old house. And at this point, they knew this was not normal. It was persistent and it was growing. Now the family was now getting really scared. They were pretty sure the house had some dark entity living inside with them. So they contacted world-renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, husband and wife. Now, Ed was a self-taught demonologist. He familiarized himself with, all these hauntings, all these, objects of horror, basically, and basically like a Ghostbuster, but way darker, so that was Ed Warren. And Lorraine had a gift for clairvoyance, and basically she had a third eye. She could see things that not the average human could see with their naked eye, basically. So they were contacted, and the parents told them, hello, now we think there's something living with us in our house. We thought you just weird noises, but it isn't. Pretty sure we're not alone here. So the Warrens didn't just chase imagination. They didn't just believe in superstition. They chased answers. You need to give them proof. They had seen these things with their very own eyes from previous cases. So they were expecting something, you understand? So they came, and immediately Lorraine Warren sensed something dark within the house. And that's when they were like, yep, your house has something dark in it. Now, the Warrens claimed that there were many spirits in the house, and some of them were actually just not evil. They're just there, basically, just living inside the house. And there were others that were downright malevolent, and one of them had attached itself to Perron. And they said that the hauntings weren't just random or they're just random ghost activity. They're very focused, very intentional. And the one that had attached itself to Caroline, basically the one that was doing the most harm, was identified as a real woman called Bathsheba Sharman. She had lived around the farmhouse, basically the Arnold estate, basically in the 1700s, and she died in 1885, and she apparently had been accused of witchcraft when she was alive, and accused of witchcraft and sacrificing her child and cursing the land, blah blah blah. But that was never a confirmed theory. It was just something that the locals had also had. But Lorraine claimed that the spirit that attached itself to Caroline was her. There was no ever real evidence or video evidence that showed that, the ghost activity at the old Arnold estate. There's never. It was just, this was all account by the family members and their interviews and written accounts, basically their later tellings, and of course which came accounting to the making of the Conjuring movie. But the Warrens believed that was a fact that was stated by Lorraine Warren, that the spirit that was detected in the house and the one who was doing the hauntings was basically by someone who was very deeply unhappy and deeply vengeful. So this is where I'll have to ask you again, Do you think this is true or fiction? Now, before you say this was even, before you say this was a fictional story, just know that family really acted as if this whole story was real and happened to them, and they were really traumatized, even claiming that they had experienced other occurrences that they were too graphic to even tell the rest of the public, basically. And even the Warrens said that they had seen shadows move in ways no other entity could move, and say that this could also not only just be a spirit, but something much darker. So now, with all that, you need to discern that for yourself. Now, after this first encounter with the Warrens in 1973, the Warrens kept on coming, and basically the weird activity was reduced, but they could still feel some energy inside the house. And again, remember, they couldn't move away just immediately because all their money was into this house, and they also had grown attached to it. Plus, they also didn't want to put another family into the same, basically, situation they were in, basically. So they stayed for almost 10 years. So in 1980 is where they moved away. But in those years, they really suffered mentally. Most of them got PTSD, anxiety. The children stopped sleeping, got nightmares. Remember, before they entered the house, they purchased the house in 1970, moved in 1971. Before all that, none of them had reports, or basically none of them had files on being mentally ill. Everyone was very mentally sane. So in case you say maybe one of them was cuckoo, now maybe after, because most of them were really traumatized. And they also say that by the time they moved out and moved into another house, they never experienced such activities ever again. It was just inside the house. So after they moved out, someone else moved into the house, and apparently, the person goes so spooked that the person left in the middle of the night without their clothes or even their car or whatever. But other families also say that they experienced some things, but not as extreme as the parents, basically. But throughout the years, people just kept on moving in, and it even became a tourist attraction, and basically headlines. It really hit headlines, yeah. Now, by 2000, between the year 2000 and 2010, the house even gained more popularity and changed its name from the Arnold Estate to the Conjuring House, of course, because of the Conjuring movie. And it just became a really big tourist attraction. Even the person who even bought the whole of the estate back in those 2000s made it into like some B&B horror place for just people to have fun. And again, it was sold, and someone bought it in 2022 to still offer the same thing, like B&B's I don't know, house tour, basically. Yeah, the whole drill, basically. So even after that, even after the movie, after the accounts of the Perron family, people still say the whole story could be still could be debatable to be in the scale of true or fiction. So now this is where I ask you, would you dare to go into the house? Would you want to spend a night inside? If your answer was fiction, so you wouldn't mind a night, right? If your answer was true, then I don't know. Sorry for making you scared or making you have a sleepless night, but this was the main points of the whole account of the Perron house haunting. So again, if you want more, you can always go and research more on any platform, basically. And if you have any comment about this, or if you think anything, basically any thought about it, you can DM me, you can say something in the comments. Just remember to like and share and subscribe and follow. And if you have a story of your own you want me to share to the world, you can always slide into my email or my DMs. It's still good. Yeah, so okay, let me ask, is it true or fiction? Until we meet again, my friends.